We're into the final weeks of the election campaign, and that means Keir Starmer needs to go 16 days without a major blunder that could derail what looks like a procession to number 10 Downing Street. So, taking an hour of phone calls with Nick Ferrari is dangerous, and there were a few banana skins for the would-be Prime Minister, starting with his repeated refusal to rule out an increase in council tax.
Sid's in Caister in Lincolnshire. Sid, you're through to Sir Keir Starmer. Go ahead. Good morning.
Good morning, Nick. Good morning,
Sid. Morning.
Morning. My question is, you said you're not going to raise income tax, VAT or national insurance, but what about council tax and pensions? Like at the minute you get 25% tax-free on your private pension. Will you be reducing that figure so you'll end up paying more tax when you draw your pension?
Yeah, Sid, on the question of tax, we've been really clear we're not going to be raising tax on working people. So as you rightly say, that means no increase in income tax, in national insurance and in VAT.
Council tax?
Then, well, on top of that, Sid, the approach we've taken is this. We've published our manifesto with our plans in it, Sid. Every single thing in that document is fully costed and fully funded. So we've worked out how much it will cost and we've worked out or explained where the money will come from. There are some tax rises, Sid, so we want to get rid of the non-dom status properly. That's where the super rich don't pay their tax in this country. We want to get rid of the private equity loophole, which again is used by those that are pretty wealthy to avoid paying the income side of tax. Okay. And we want a better windfall tax on oil and gas companies. But beyond that, Sid, none of our plans require a tax rise because our focus is on growth. So, Sid, none of our plans require tax rises over and above the ones we've set out.
So you can say now there will not be an increase in council tax?
Look, Nick, what I'm not going to do is sit here 2 and a bit weeks before the election and write the budgets for the next 5 years.
So you can't rule it out?
What I can say is that none of our plans require a tax rise, and that is for a reason. And the reason is our focus is on getting our economy going, on building, on growing, on raising living standards and creating wealth.
You're declining to take the opportunity to say that council tax will not increase. So I can put it to you that it will increase, and you can say I don't know.
Nick, look, it would be foolish to write 5 years worth of budgets before going through to 2029.
But you do realise, respectfully, every time you say we're not going to raise VAT, we're not going to raise it, and everybody says, what about council tax? You say, well, I honestly can't. You know what people are thinking. You're a bright bloke. Council tax will go up.
Yeah, well, let me...
Clearly it will.
No, Nick, that isn't our plan. No, Nick, none of our plans require a tax rise.
Will it go up or when to go up, Sir Keir?
None of our plans require a tax rise. No, Nick, because I do need to explain this.
I think you've had your time, respectfully.
He repeatedly faced questions over how he felt about his predecessor, Jeremy Corbyn, and eventually admitted that he would have served in government if he'd won the last election.
Graham in Bushy. Graham, you're on the radio. Good morning.
Hi, good morning, Keir.
Hi, Graham.
Hi. You were happy to serve in Jeremy Corbyn's shadow cabinet from 2016. Without the waffle about believing Labour wouldn't win the 2019 election, just give me a simple yes or no answer. Had Labour won the election in 17 or 19, would you have been happy to serve in the cabinet under Prime Minister Corbyn?
Well, I didn't think we'd win either of those, Graham, and there's no getting away from that. And certainly...
just a simple yes or no. If you were part of the shadow cabinet, would you have been happy to serve in his cabinet if he won?
Well, Graham, it's a pure hypothetical. Didn't cross my mind because I didn't think we would win. But let me just...
So you campaigned for him because you thought you wouldn't win?
Look, I campaigned for Labour because I've campaigned for Labour in every election, and I wanted good colleagues to be returned.
But had they won? Graham's is a fair point. Had they won, would you have accepted a post in Mr Corbyn's cabinet?
I don't think we were going to win. I don't think anybody thought we were going to win.
Man. You know that's not answering the question, Sir Keir. Had they been successful, would you have taken a cabinet post?
Look, Nick, it's a hypothetical. I didn't think we would win. I did take a post. Look, I served for 3 years in the shadow Brexit role because I thought that was a very important issue for our country.
But would you have followed him into government?
Look, it's hypothetical. If we'd got it over the line... Because I didn't think it would happen. But look, if we'd got it over the line. There were important things that I thought needed to be done from the front bench to continue and complete on the Brexit work, to make it absolutely clear that the Labour Party never deviated from our position on NATO, and to do the necessary work on anti-Semitism. But Nick, as we went into that 2019 election, I genuinely did not think, and I think I wasn't alone in this, that Labour would win that election.
Raising VAT on private school fees to help some of Labour's plans has been a repeated criticism for the Labour leader, and he was grilled on why he knew better than a string of teachers, including head teacher Michelle, who had warned him off the plan.
Mike in Berkshire, I'm in a marginal Berkshire seat. I've given up on the Tories. I would be minded to give Labour a chance, but I seem to be one of those people the Labour have chosen to despise. I'm a moderately successful, aspirational parent who's elected to choose private education. VAT at 20% feels like a super tax on me. He is not alone. The head teacher of the school that your wife attended says this will cause significant disruption for children forced to leave school, but we're even more concerned about the capacity of local schools. The head of the school that you attended, Reigate Grammar, says this will inevitably lead to thousands of children going to already oversubscribed state schools. How come you know better than all these teachers?
Well, Nick, firstly, I've got nothing against private schools, and I do understand that many parents save hard and work hard to send their children to private schools because they have real aspiration for them. But I also understand that all parents have aspiration for their children, including parents who send their children to a state school. And I want to make sure that every single child, wherever they come from, whatever their background, has the opportunity to get on in life, and that feels that success belongs to them. It's a tough choice. There isn't a lot of money around, but it's a choice we've made to ensure that we have the teachers we need in our state secondary schools. It's a tough choice.
Final word from the head of a school, which I think is in the town that your school was at. Michelle, your final word to Sir Keir on this, and I must move on. Michelle.
So, Keir, I have written to you twice and you haven't replied. I've also written to Bridget Phillipson, no reply. I really, really question that the Labour Party do not care about these children. I think it's blind ignorance to push through with this plan and avoid speaking to those in the sector, such as myself, who have this expertise. And I honestly believe that your response to this question simply highlights that Labour does not care about SEN children when you think that they can just go back into the state sector despite the state sector not being able to meet their needs.
I must allow Sir Keir a final response.
Well, Michelle, we do care.
We'll pass your address across to Michelle to Sir Keir's people.
We do care, Michelle, and I want every single child, whether they go to private or state school, to have the same opportunities. It really matters to me. But Michelle, on the first issue you raised, I don't know why you haven't had a reply. Can I apologise to you for that? And Michelle, one thing that will come out of this is you will get a reply very quickly. Apologies, somehow in the system that hasn't been picked up. But Michelle, that's not intended to be discourteous. I will now make sure that you get that. Firstly, I read your letters and that you get a full reply. So apologies there, Michelle.
Those 103,000 pupils, Sir Keir, who do not get that help, I can hand you the literature here if you the special educational needs. 103,000 will not get the help they need. I'm happy for you to take that document.
Nick, where there's a plan in place that's required, then they are exempt.
All right.
And ahead of strikes by junior doctors next week, the Labour leader called on them to down tools and call them off. He said that he'd take a different approach to the strikes and would get in the room to try and settle the long-running dispute.
Matthew's in Kiel. Matthew, you're through to Sir Keir. Go ahead. Morning to you.
Morning.
Morning, Matthew.
Morning. I'm 23 and I graduate from medical school in July. I start working as a junior doctor in August. I'll be entering into a junior doctor workforce that feels devalued, dejected and disrespected. I think everyone wants to leave the NHS and go to Australia and New Zealand. It's all well and good saying you're going to train more doctors who have fewer extra 40k appointments per week, but doctors are leaving in their droves. So Keir, I want to know, how will you address the workforce retention crisis? And B, how are you going to settle the junior doctor dispute?
Yeah, on the retention crisis, we need to have better respect for our doctors and everybody in the NHS, Matthew. And on the...
what does that mean, better respect?
Simply this, Nick.
I respect my doctor and my consultants already.
Yeah, but let me give the best example I can, which is a Prime Minister who stands up 18 months ago and says, I'm going to reduce the waiting lists. And he says, I'm going to be personally held to account for that. It's my promise to you. Hold me to account. Right. The waiting list was 7.2 million.
How's
they're now 7.5 million. When he's now asked, well, you said you get the list down, he says it's all the fault of the NHS staff. That is highly disrespectful. And I think he found that when he did the debate last week and was confronted by a junior doctor. So, Matthew, we will not operate in that way. On the junior doctor dispute, Matthew, you raised that, and let me deal with it, because it is shocking that it's dragged on so long. We've had months and months and months now where both the doctors and the government have said, well, we want a deal, but we're not going into the room first to negotiate a deal. We would take a different approach. We would firstly, and Wes Streeting, the shadow Health Secretary, has made this very clear. We would say to the doctors, don't strike during the election campaign, because we're very close now to the opportunity for a different approach with the Labour government if we get over the line. So don't strike, because that causes all sorts of issues inevitably for patients. So we are asking the doctors to call that action off. So but what Wes Streeting has said is he will negotiate. He will pick up the phone and start the discussion. Now, I know the junior doctors' starting position, as it were, is 35%. We've made it clear we cannot afford that, but we will get in the room. We will negotiate. A lot of this, Matthew, is about terms and conditions as well, about the way in which we retain
do to stop Matthew and others going to Australia or Canada or elsewhere that he referenced?
Well, I think we need to settle a dispute. We need to get our waiting list down, which Matthew referenced, the 40,000 appointments each and every week additional. Matthew, they will be...
But that's about a 1.5% lift in appointments, isn't it, initially? Again, that was pointed out to you on Friday.
40,000 a week is 2 million a year.
Yes.
We've got just under about 8 million on the waiting list. We will clear that waiting list in the 5 years of a Labour government if we get over the line. And Nick, we did it...
The annual total, though, it's only a small percentage. I appreciate that it will attack the waiting list, but the overall total, is it ambitious enough?
Yeah, if we can get that waiting list down, it is... When we were last in government, we brought waiting lists down to the lowest level, and satisfaction in the NHS was at its highest. It is the complete reverse now, the highest ever waiting lists and the lowest level satisfaction. And Matthew, this matters for all the... I mean, my wife obviously works in the NHS, so I've got a pretty good line of sight in one of the big London hospitals. The waiting lists are bearing down on the staff because all the time they've got this backlog. It is really making a difficult job even more difficult.
Let's get a quick one-line response from you, Matthew, if you would, sir.
I mean, I just cannot emphasise how dire the situation is. The morale at the moment in the workforce. Finally, medical students, 1 in 3 from a recent BMA survey said they intend to leave the NHS after 2 years of initial foundation training post-graduation, and they haven't started work yet.
And thankfully for football fans, he moved quickly to kill off suggestions that Labour would slap a transfer levy tax on clubs. The Labour boss insisted it would be a huge own goal.
10% Premier League transfer levy being looked at by Labour. That means Arsenal have to spend an extra...
No, we're not. Let me just kill that one. We're not looking at that, Nick.
Oh, your colleague said that she was.
I think she said we would... Thangham.
Yes.
She said we'd look at the Tracy Crouch proposals. Now, it's true
Speaking
that
to reporters, Shadow Sports Secretary Thangham Debonair said she would revive the controversial tax.
No, she said we'd look at the Tracy Crouch proposals. But look, let me just kill it dead. We're not looking at that. That isn't part of our plans for football governance. Okay. We will get that football governance bill in. It's much needed for fans, but that isn't part of it.
So, an hour of tough questions from LBC callers, a grilling from Nick Ferrari, which took no prisoners. And tomorrow, it will be Prime Minister Rishi Sunak's turn in the hot seat.